The fluorescent lights of the Defense Intelligence Agency headquarters hummed their midnight song as Colonel Marcus Webb strode through the basement corridors, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum. He'd just returned from a briefing at the Pentagon, still wearing his dress uniform festooned with commendations from 3 decades of intelligence work. That's when he spotted her, an elderly woman in custodial coveralls, methodically mopping the hallway outside the secure communications room. "Evening," Marcus said with practiced charm, flashing the smile that had disarmed foreign assets and Capitol Hill lawmakers alike. "Working the graveyard shift, I see. That's dedication." The woman didn't look up, continuing her steady strokes with the mop. Marcus pressed on, his voice taking on a theatrical tone. "You know, we all have our jobs in the intelligence community. Mine's a bit more, let's say, classified. They call me Phantom. It's my operational code name." He puffed his chest slightly. "Can't discuss what I do, of course, but let's just say when the president needs something done quietly, my phone rings." The woman squeezed out her mop in the bucket, still silent. "What about you?" Marcus continued, leaning against the wall. "I bet you hear all sorts of things, cleaning these offices. Ever wonder what's in those locked file rooms? The secrets that pass through these halls?" He chuckled. "Not that you'd understand the technical side of signals intelligence and covert operations. It takes years of training, top security clearances." Finally, the woman straightened up and looked at him directly. Her eyes were sharp, a peculiar gray that seemed to see through walls. "Colonel Webb," she said quietly, her voice steady and clear. "I know exactly who you are. And I know your code name isn't Phantom." Marcus's smile faltered. "Excuse me. Your actual designation is Kingfisher 7. You're the Deputy Director of the Eastern Europe Desk. You've held that position for 18 months, and before that, you were Station Chief in Berlin." She set down her mop. "You've never run a field operation yourself, you coordinate them from this building." The blood drained from Marcus's face. "How do you? That's classified information. Who are you?" The woman reached into her coverall pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. She flipped it open to reveal an ID card that made Marcus's knees go weak. Right. Catherine M. Senior Special Agent, retired, Covert Operations Division Classified Access. Level OMEGA. Below the text was a designation that Marcus had only heard whispered in the most secure briefing rooms. Lone Eagle Yo. Marcus's voice came out as a hoarse whisper. Lone Eagle was the legend who infiltrated the Soviet military intelligence in '78. Who extracted 3 defectors from Moscow during the Cold War. Who is currently working as custodial staff, because the pension doesn't quite cover her granddaughter's medical bills. Catherine finished. "Leukemia treatments are expensive, Colonel. Even for decorated veterans." Marcus felt as if the floor had dropped beneath him. Lone Eagle. The ghost who had operated behind the Iron Curtain for 12 years without being caught. The agent whose exploits were still studied in training, but whose face had been kept out of every file, every photo, every record. I didn't know. I apologize. I had no idea that the woman mopping your floors once spoke 7 languages and ran networks across 3 continents." Catherine's expression didn't change. "That's the point of good cover, Colonel. You learn to be invisible. I'm just disappointed that after 30 years in intelligence, you still judge people by their uniforms rather than their eyes." She picked up her mop again. "The communications room is secure, by the way. I swept it for listening devices an hour ago. Old habits." She glanced at him. "You have a meeting there tomorrow, at 0600 hours, with the Director of National Intelligence. Might want to prepare better than you did for tonight's Pentagon briefing. Your recommendations on the Budapest situation showed you haven't read the cultural assessment files." Marcus stood frozen as Catherine moved down the hallway, her mop swishing quietly against the floor. The next morning, Marcus arrived at his office before dawn. He made 3 phone calls before 0500 hours. The first was to the Human Resources Director. The second was to the DIA's Veterans Affairs Liaison. The third was to his own bank. By the time Catherine Wright arrived for her night shift 2 weeks later, there was an envelope waiting at the security desk with her name on it. Inside was a letter informing her that an anonymous benefactor had established a medical trust fund for her granddaughter's treatment. There was also a handwritten note on official letterhead. "To the real Lone Eagle, thank you for your service, and for reminding me that true intelligence operatives never stop observing. The agency is establishing a hardship fund for retired covert personnel. You were the inspiration. With deepest respect, Colonel M. Webb." Catherine read the note twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in her locker. She allowed herself a small smile, the first Marcus would never see, and began her rounds. Some lessons, she thought, are worth more than any classified briefing. And sometimes the most important intelligence work is teaching the next generation to see what's really in front of them.